Hello, everybody, and welcome to Chip in a Chair, your one-stop spot for everything poker. Today is one of those times I'm going to do part of the 10-minute tip series. This is a little thing where within 10 minutes I give you a decent tip that's going to help you in your game. Today's tip is the what you looking at. It's a Philly thing. Ultimately, it's a question that I'm going to start out by asking you what you looking at, but then later you're going to be asking your opponents. And I'll explain to you what I mean by this. When I teach this, and it's also I talk about it at length in the Power Poker course that'll be coming out later this year. But when I teach people, up front, when we start playing and stuff like that, okay, we'll put you at the table. Okay, you get your hole cards. Dealer deals out your nice two pretty little hole cards. Well, what you looking at? Well, you're going to look at your cards so that you can determine how you're going to play it. Do I have a hand worth playing? Do I have a hand that's worth calling the blind? Do I have a hand that's worth raising that blind? Do I have a hand that's worth calling somebody else's raise if they raise that blind? Do I have a hand that's worth re-raising somebody if they raise that blind? Do I have a hand that I should just fold? These are all valid questions. Absolutely. These are all questions that do need answers. But these are all questions that are based off of guaranteed information. That's not going to help you. I mean, it will to an extent, but what's more important, don't look at your cards. See, those hole cards, when you first get them, if you look at them right away, or you wait a minute and a half to look at them, guess what? They're the same cards. They didn't change. Those cards are going to be the same the moment they get in front of you until you give them back to the dealer because you either didn't like them or you won the hand. Okay? Either way, the whole time those cards are in front of you, they're not changing. So don't concern yourself with them. Not right away. You know what's important? You need to ask your opponents what you looking at. That's what you need to do. See, your opponent's reactions to how they look at these cards is where you're going to determine how strong or weak they could be. Now, Mike Caro teaches in his poker course and obviously in his seminars, he teaches that, if an opponent looks at their cards and then looks away and they're seemingly uninterested, they're very interested in it. When it comes to them and they seem like they're not interested, boom, they raise on top of everything. Because they really have a hand that they're very interested in, but they want to show you, hey, it's okay for you to bet at me. I really don't. I could really care less about this. So go ahead, you can bet if you want. I mean, the Eagles are playing. Go Birds! So I could care less about this. And then when it gets to you, oh, you raised? Guess what? I re-raise. Now, I've seen it go both ways, though. I've seen your opponents that'll sit there and look at those cards and look away and stare at the cute girl walking by or whatever's on the screen, whatever, maybe even just pull out their phone and twiddle on their phone, whatever. And then when it comes to them, all that non-interested play to this hand is exactly honest. They weren't interested in the hand. When it comes to them, they tossed their cards in. They just were waiting, and they couldn't wait quick enough to get rid of them. They were just that unenthused with them. But the thing is, by watching your opponents, you can pick this off. You can watch your opponents and determine which one of these two players they are. If I'm watching an opponent and I see that they look at their cards, then they look away, and then when it gets to them they raise, well, guess what? You're giving me information about how you're playing. Or vice versa. If I know that you look at your cards and when you look away, you're not interested, well, now I know that I'm in a better spot, I'm safer, and I know that I can come at you, and you're not going to come back over top of me. But I got this information because I wasn't looking at my hole cards. I was looking at you. That's the key. That's where you're going to get your information. Take this one for example. You ever notice, honestly, it takes about 5 to 7 seconds to look at your cards and know what the value is and what the suit is. This simple. King of Hearts, 7 of Spades. That wasn't even 5 seconds. But you know what? I know what I have. Do you ever see these people that are playing these games and they'll take their cards and they'll stare at them and they'll stare at them and they'll squeeze them? You swear to God they're trying to rub that one spot off of that deuce to make it an ace. But then you ask yourself to them, quietly of course, what you looking at? Why are you staring so hard at these cards? What is interesting you about these cards? And if this is pre-flop, that's really important to want to try to ask them that question. Why are you staring so hard when there's nothing else out on the board? Why are you looking so hard at this? Well, more times than not, it's because they're trying to make you think that they have a big decision in front of them. They've already made up their mind. When I look down and I see that King 7 offsuit, I've already made up my mind of how I want to play it. So if I sit there and I'm staring at it longer, that doesn't affect how I'm going to play my hand. I've already made that decision. That decision that quick. But if I want you to think that I have a major decision in front of me that I'm trying to decide, no, not really. But I want you to think that I'm uncomfortable with that decision. I want you to think that I'm really struggling of whether I should make this call or not when I'm actually sitting there with a lock on the hand because the board came out King 7-4. I already know I got a massive, lock on this right now, especially if it's a rainbow flop. And if I know that you ain't got pocket kings or pocket sevens or pocket fours, because I could tell by the way you're playing that you don't have any of those hands, well, yeah, guess what? You're betting out with your ace king. I already know I have you dominated. Now, yes, I know I'd have to avoid the ace, but still. So it's all about paying attention to your opponents. So you ask them, why are you staring at these cards? When the flop comes out, for example, let's use this one. Same thing, when the flop or the turn or the river comes out, what you looking at? Don't look at the flop. Don't look at the turn. Don't look at the river. Watch your opponents. See what their reactions are. Because you know what? Let's say you're watching the flop. Flop comes out. I'm watching the flop when the flop comes out. Not that I would be, but let's just say that I am. I'm one of your other opponents. And I see that flop come out. And then within a split second, I glance down at my chips and then look away. Or look anywhere else. But if you didn't see that little nod that I made down towards my chips, well, guess what? You're missing a key point. Because the majority of times when the flop comes out and somebody looks down at their chips real quick, they do that quick glance down, it's because they want to invest some of those chips. Maybe not all of them, but they're ready to put some out there. They're ready to fire. And it's probably a good bet that if you decide to bet, they're probably going to raise you. They're going to at least call you. They're not going anywhere. So you can decide on whether or not you want to actually play that hand, push that out there, and take the chance of them coming over top of you. But if you see that, then you know, hey, they're actually interested in playing. They're actually interested in this hand as well. So then you ask yourself, why are they interested? What could they have? Now, in the poker course that I'm teaching, that actually will bring you down into the range of hands based on their position, based on what they've done pre-flop or on the flop, whatever it is. But instead of getting into all that, initially, you need to ask yourself, what you looking at? Pay attention to your opponents. That's the key. Because you see, the flop, the turn, the river, your hole cards, that is all guaranteed information. That is not going to change. But your opponent's reactions to all that guaranteed information, to their guaranteed hole card information, and that flop, turn, and river information, that's where your profit lies. That's where your safety margin lies. That's where you can identify who at the table could be a threat and who at the table could be the sucker that's going to give you their money. Pay attention. Always be looking into that. And remember that if you're asking your opponents what you're looking at, be aware that they're most likely asking that of you. So make sure to disguise what you're doing. And that's the other part of this what you're looking at tip. Remember, if you're looking at your opponents, they're looking at you. Okay? The good ones are going to be watching you as well as everybody else at that table. So you don't want to be predictable. You don't want to be that person that every time you have a crappy hand, you look at it and you look away. Then when it gets to you, boom, you fold. And then when you have a hand you want to play, you look at it and you're like, okay, let's play this one. I'm going to throw my little card protector on here now. So now guess what? I'm interested in this hand. But you know what? That's a simple little thing. Somebody who's not interested, who looks at it and looks away, versus somebody who looks at it, puts it down, puts a card protector on it, and then looks away. Well, those are two totally different things. Two totally different signs. Because most people ain't putting a chip on top of their cards or a protector on top of their cards if they're planning on getting rid of them. Now, they might get rid of them if a huge raise comes in. But 9 times out of 10, if they're putting a protector on those cards, they like them. They want to play them. They want to see something develop with them. So, something as simple as that could basically give you a lot of information. But don't be the person that's going to be predictable, okay? That's what you want to avoid. Remember, if your opponents are looking at you, that means you got to trick them. Don't give them the information that you want them to give to you. Take everything, give them nothing.